All right. So, main thing for tonight, the main uh, one of the big premises of the program is the nutrition. Weight loss isn't going to happen unless you get your nutrition right. So this week is going to be a lot about the nutrition, the basics of why we're doing what we're doing, how to not just keep it now, but also modify it and maintain it long term, so you know the right decisions to make and what sort of stuff to do. Tonight one we're basically going to touch on a lot of the fundamentals, and then Thursday and Saturday, I'll expand on them a little bit more as well. So eating itself, a lot of people look at, especially when they jump on a weight loss challenge or a weight loss whatever, dieting tends to be a bit of a dirty word. I generally don't like using the word dieting. For me, it's more just healthy eating. Dieting for a lot of people instinctively or automatically kind of gives a thought of eating like a rabbit, cutting down the nutrition, really kind of eating boring meals and basically sticking to fairly basic, plain kind of foods. What you should be doing is looking for things that are maintainable. When we're eating boring foods and plain foods, it's not maintainable long term. It's the sort of things that most people can kind of stick to for a short term, but they can't stick to long term. It's very counterintuitive to what we want to be able to do, especially when you got kids, when you got family, when you got busy life. If you're eating things that are boring, it's going to be hard to keep that motivation about it. So generally when we're talking about food, we want to talk about healthy eating, not dieting. Dieting is just blah. It's a four-letter word for me. The type of foods we want to eat, everyone kind of tries to fit into a one-size-fits-all. The food we're going to be doing for this is, everyone's going to be following the same meal plan, but it's because we've all got the same goals. When you finish this challenge, your goals will change. There's no two ways about it. You're going to get to the end of this, the 6 weeks, and you're going to think of something else to do. You're going to think of different goals you want to achieve. You're going to lose weight, then you're going to want to start putting on strength, and you're going to want to start putting muscle mass, whatever it happens to be. You've got to be flexible with your meals. You've got to be flexible with your food, so that long term you're going to be eating towards your goals. You're not going to be just sticking to the one plan and doing that for the rest of your life. That's not it's not practical, and it's not going to help you work with your goals long term. When we talk about foods, you'll hear a lot of stuff talked about these days. Like Cam's wanting to join. When we talk about foods, you're going to hear a lot these days about macros, macronutrients, counting your macros. There's a bunch of different things these days. If it fits your macros is a big thing these days. When we talk macros, what it basically is that the 3 building blocks of your food: fats, proteins, carbs. Most people know carbs are bad, well, not bad for us, but most people know if you want to lose weight, you got to cut carbs, which is one of the things we're doing in this program. A lot of people tend to limit pretty much everything they eat. So they'll limit their carbs, they'll limit their proteins, they'll limit their fats. What you really want to do, which is what this program is based around, is limiting the carbs, increasing your proteins to some degree, but mainly increasing your fats. There's reasons behind why we do it. I'll go into it, as I said, later in the week when we really delve deep into how the nutrition works and how it affects your body. But essentially, your carbs, your body uses them for breaking down to simple sugars to give you your main energy source. That's what we use for energy. Carbs are found in anything from bread to grains to rice to wheat to pasta to sugars to soft drink to juice to anything that has a soft drink in it, or a sugar in it, sorry. There's different types of carbs. There's your low GI and your high GI. GI doesn't get talked about much these days. It was a buzzword a few years ago. Everyone was talking about low GI, low GI, low GI. Essentially what it is it's giving you a low energy source or a low burn energy source. There's an old science experiment you do at school. I know my boys did it, and my oldest did it last year at high school in science. Essentially, you get different foods and you burn them over a Bunsen burner and see how quickly they burn off. What that's doing is burning off the sugar content. That's essentially what your body's doing. The quicker something burns off, the less complex the sugar molecules in it, the quicker it burns off, the quicker energy boost you get, but also the less time you get that energy for. It's like watching kids at a birthday party. They're going down the soft drink, they're going down the red cord, and they all run up the walls, and then they crash mid-afternoon because that sugar's burnt off. When we do have carbs, we want to try and limit them to low GI. Low GI is going to be a very slow burn and a long burn, very long burn energy source. So it's going to give you a maintained energy source over a long time. It's the difference. A lot of people have like big sugary cereals for breakfast. Get to mid-morning, they feel like shit. They need a coffee to pick themselves up, or they need some other meal or sugar intake to pick themselves up. As opposed to having something like rolled oats, Greek yogurt, muesli, something to a low GI source. It's going to give you a long burn. You'll be fine till lunchtime. You won't get that drop. You won't get that back off of energy. So carbs are your primary energy source. What we're doing as part of this program is we're using fats as our energy source. Your body uses fats as a kind of like a backup energy source. They're a more concentrated food content, so they've got a very high pound for pound compared to carbs. You get a very high calorie intake or a calorie source. Your body will use them for numerous different things. We use fats for insulating your body, regulating your body temperature, your core temperature. We also use it for protecting vital organs. Visceral fat is the fat that you contain inside all around your organs, and it's the too much of it, it's what can cause a lot of damage and a lot of danger to your organs. Puts a lot of load on your heart and your lungs and all your internal organs. You do need visceral fat to some degree, and your body uses that fat to basically protect the organs. So it uses it kind of like a dampener and insulation around the organs to, in the event of a sudden movement or jolt, it uses that padding to kind of keep your organs a little bit safer. Your fats are also used as a way of storing energy. Your body uses them. You've always got fat cells floating around your body. Your body can use them. Your liver converts them back into what's called ketones, which is most people will have heard of ketosis or keto diets, which is essentially what this program is based around. When your liver converts those fat cells back into ketones, your body uses those ketones as the energy source. We can do that, by eating the ketones or eating the fats to get the ketones, but we also get it by converting our fat stores through the liver back into ketones and getting the energy source that way, which is where we lose our weight from. Proteins are the third. Proteins our body uses right down to a molecular level. If you look at your DNA is made up of a whole bunch of protein strains or protein strands. Your body uses proteins to rebuild all your fibers, your muscles, your tissues, your organs, everything that your body uses to exist is made up of protein in some way, shape, or form. Your body will store carbs. It will store a small amount of fats to a degree, but generally they're a lot more accessible, so it's going to use them more. It won't store protein. High protein diets is another big thing that a lot of people do to burn off weight. When we have a really high protein diet, it's more for putting muscle mass on. So this is where I'm talking about if you're knowing the building blocks of your nutrition and what you're putting in your body is going to help you progress later on. When we get past a weight loss and getting the muscle definition, getting those bodies we want, then we start looking at possibly expanding size is usually the next big thing, next big goal most guys go for is building that size up or building the strength up. That's where we need a high protein diet as opposed to a higher fat diet. The high protein is going to encourage muscle growth. It's going to encourage muscle repair. It's going to keep you safe. It's going to basically reduce your recovery time and help you build more muscles quicker over a shorter amount of time. So your three main building blocks, your carbs, fats, proteins. For this one, we're looking at, as I said, a high fat diet. So we're increasing our fat content to use that as our energy source. Our body's not going to store as much of it. It's going to use it more readily, and you can manipulate it so that you're not just using the fats you're eating, but also the fats that are already in your body, your fat stores, and using your liver to convert them back into ketones. Use those ketones as energy and get the body busting at the seams. That's why if you've had your MCT coffee, you usually find within about half hour, 45 minutes, you get an energy boost like nothing else because you've had that quick intake of fats. Your liver's gone overdrive to boost up your ketones and basically give you a sugar spike in your body. Calorie counting is the next big thing. A lot of people think they have to calorie count. If you're eating the right foods, you shouldn't have to. Calorie counting is for people that generally having a balanced diet. There's nothing wrong with that, but balanced diets are going to be a very slow process in terms of seeing results. You need to put in a lot more effort. They're a lot less forgiving. If you miss a little bit, if you eat too much of this, eat too much of that, or not enough of this, it throws the whole thing out. When we're doing a really high fat content diet like this, when I've done this before, I've been in ketosis. So that's when I've got a high enough ketone level in my blood system that my body is in a state of ketosis. So it's using the fat stores to convert back through the liver into ketones and keep myself into a weight loss routine. I've had days where I had a kids party, had Christmas, whatever. I haven't bothered about it. I've just eaten whatever's there. I've tried to pick smart and pick a higher fat content, having cheese or some sort of dairy or something like that to keep my fat content up. But if I've had a little bit of carbs, I've had sugar, I've had a lolly, something like that, it doesn't make any difference. My body doesn't jump out of ketosis just because I had one, because I'm in such a consistent state of it. If I'm on a balanced diet and I'm doing the calorie counting and that sort of stuff, the problem with that is if I have one too many of something or not enough of something else, it throws it completely out of whack and it puts you back a week. It doesn't just have a little bit of a speed bump in the way. It can put a big stop sign in the way of your progress, and you've got to start again. The other catch with calorie counting is most people that do it don't do it right. A calorie is not a calorie. As I sort of mentioned before, fats are very high, a very dense calorie content as opposed to a carb. Generally, fats have got basically double the calories that a carb has. I can have 100 grams calories of carbs. I can have 100 grams calories of proteins. They're still, if I'm just purely counting calories, they're still going to look like 100 calories. So I might eat 1,000 calories. I might be on a 1,500 calorie diet. 1,000 calories that might be made up of carbs. If I'm having 1,000 calories of carbs a day and 500 calories of everything else, I'm going to be putting weight on. I'm not going to be losing weight. Unfortunately, that's what a lot of people do. They count the bare carbs. They don't count the macros, as in the fats, carbs, and proteins of what those calories are made up of. Calorie counting is good if you're on a very monitored, strict diet, but at the same time, it's very, very bad if you're not doing it right. It can have a complete opposite effect of what you want. So calorie counting is something that I generally don't want to do. If you're eating the right food, you shouldn't have to count it. As I said, your fats are either going to get used or wasted. You're not going to store a huge amount of them. And if you do, you're going to burn them off really quickly when your body gets in ketosis anyway. The proteins your body's not going to store. Your body doesn't get any energy out of storage. That's where our fat content comes from, is through we generate fat and we hold onto fat as an energy storage system. So if in times of starvation, your body needs more energy to survive, it's got the fat stores there to do it. Protein is purely for rebuilding muscle fibers and tissues. It doesn't have any purpose in energy, so it doesn't hold onto it. So you're either going to use the proteins or waste it. If you're calorie counting, you need to make sure you're doing it smart and you're doing it on a very balanced diet. If you're eating the right foods and you're eating the high fats or the high proteins and the really low carbs, you shouldn't have to count. You're either going to use it, you're going to waste it. There's no point in counting it and sitting there with a calculator and measuring this and weighing that. There's no point. You come with your basic meal, you build it, you eat as much as you want. Portion control goes out the window, especially when you're high fat content. I've spoken to most of you guys today in some way, shape or form, and you've all said pretty much the same thing. I'm feeling full. I don't feel like eating. I'm, eating normal portion sizes, but I'm not feeling hungry afterwards. High fat content diet will do that too. Because it has the high calorie density, it's going to fill you up. It's going to make you not want to eat more. The big thing a lot of people struggle with when they first start on this is the mental side of it. Physically, they don't actually feel hungry, but mentally they're used to having the bigger portion sizes. They're used to having the multiple meals through the day rather than just the breakfast, lunch, dinner, and possibly a snack in between. I myself used to be 5-6 meals a day at least. Usually I used to eat before I started doing ketosis. I used to be a very high protein content diet. I used to do a lot of muscle building and muscle definition stuff. So a lot of real big strength stuff and muscle work rather than just cutting down and getting a real lean physique. So I used to be really, really high protein, but I used to have to eat like a horse. I used to be on 4,000 to 4,500 4,500 calories a day. I used to eat 1.5 kg plus of chicken a day. Like I just wouldn't stop eating. I'd constantly eating. I'd do a session with a client. I'd go and have a meal. I'd come back. I'd do another session. I'd go have another meal. And they weren't just little portions. They were big meals. Ever since I've been doing ketosis, 3 meals a day. I'll occasionally have a snack if I've done a big workout, if I've had a long day and there's a big space in between the meals. I will have a little bit of a snack in between, but generally 3 meals a day, and I'm not full. I'm not hungry. I'm completely full all day long. It was a big mental shift for me as well as it was a physical shift. So it's something that you might find you struggle with. There are a few things that we can do to avoid or to limit those cravings. I'm going to talk about that. I think Saturday I've got that talking about cravings and how to avoid cravings, because we all get the cravings. You'll get a sugar craving here and there, using things like your keto fudge, and there's other different options here and there that we can bring in to help avoid the cravings and help reduce them. In terms of where to go from here, when we're looking at meals, I'm going to go in a little bit more detail tomorrow night about not tomorrow night, Thursday night, about making up meals and making up recipes. We want to make sure they're easy and they're quick. As you've probably noticed from the recipes in this first week, they're all real simple. They're quick, simple meals. Everyone tends to think that to eat healthy, they've got to have these big, fancy, whiz-bang meals that, chef prepared, and they've got to be this and that, the other. You really don't. Literally, my kitchen consists, my kitchen utensils, I got thousands of things in the kitchen. Everything in there I use. I've got a cast iron skillet. I've got a big one and a small one that I use, depending on if I'm cooking for myself, just a quick meal, or cooking for the family. I've got a cast iron skillet, stock pot that I use. And I've got 2 good knives, and that's it. I don't need anything else to cook. I don't need big fancy meals, stove, oven, that's it. As you've probably noticed, each meal, 15 minutes, maybe 20 at a push. I've got them all dialed in. I know how to do them. I don't look at the recipes. I just make them these days. I can pretty much knock off 4 to 5 full meals, basically prepped, done, ready to go in the oven or on the stove, whatever, in an hour. That's my Sunday afternoons usually. I'll sit down, I'll cook everything for the week, bulk cook everything, prep it all, done, an hour. I've got 4 or 5 meals done for the week. Healthy eating doesn't have to be over the top. It doesn't have to be big fancy meals. You don't have to count this and this and this and this. My goal for you guys at the end of this is to be able to, even the end of this first week, which is all about the food and nutrition, is to be able to look at food a little bit differently, to be seeing it more as a tool rather than a way of life. Food shouldn't get in the way. It should be fun. I completely believe in having fun, enjoyable food and meals. It's not fun, enjoyable. If they're not tasty meals, you're not going to eat it. You're not going to stick to it. It's all just going to go out the window, like all the previous programs and stuff you've tried. I completely believe in food that is tasty and fun, but I don't believe your life has to revolve around it. I don't believe you got to sit there and sweat for an hour every night cooking some whiz-bang meal. If you can't knock it over in 15 minutes, there's probably ways of cutting it down. There's probably a whole bunch of shit in there you don't need, and a whole bunch of processes and stuff that you really don't need. The cordon bleu one's the perfect example. The cordon bleu recipe that you've got this week. When I first got that recipe, I can't remember where I got it from. When I first got it, it was like a 30-minute plus prep. I needed 2 different pans. I needed the oven. I needed the stove. I needed a whole bunch of garbage. These days, I have 1 pot, the stove, the oven. I dice the chicken, throw it in the pot, cook it through with a bit of virgin olive oil, put the sauce on top, put the cheese on top, throw it in the oven. It's literally manual time, probably 5, maybe 10 minutes. If I haven't got diced chicken, maybe 10 minutes for me to cut up, and 5 minutes on the stove. Like it's something that went from about a 30 to 40 minute prep down to under 10 minutes these days. It's all about thinking smart. Smart fitness is completely underrated these days. Unfortunately, most of the industry is based around making money off you poor blokes that don't know any better. Most of the information that's out there is completely wrong. Most of the advice that's given and most of the programs that are given and the supplements and products that are sold are designed for no other reason than making money. They're not going to make money if they get you the results you want in a reasonable time frame. They're going to make money if they give you little results that keep you wanting to come back and market it to you really well and keep you coming back to them for a long time. it's not going to make the money if they get you the results you want and ultimately you leave them, plain and simple. Unfortunately, most gyms, most PTs, most fitness professionals, most products, most companies all work on that same principle. The food pyramid that we all know and trust and have done for years since we were in high school is the biggest example of where the health and fitness industry is a complete joke. The food pyramid that we all know and love and got preached to for thousands of years was actually designed in Sweden from memory, 1950 something. I think it was 56, 57 from memory. During a time of severe recession and severe food shortages. The food pyramid was designed based around the fact of what was available and what was available cheap. It had absolutely no merit to food nutrition or what it did for your diet. It's now it's gone through a few evolutions, and there's a new food pyramid that's been put out by the World Health Organization. But the research and the proof behind it is non-existent. I've hunted for hours and hours trying to actually find some good studies and medical papers and stuff behind it. They don't exist. There's a few little rough papers and guidelines of why they come up with what they want. But in the one company on one hand is telling you follow this food pyramid, that if you look at it, carbs are one of the biggest ingredients on it. Even on the new one, carbs are one of the biggest possible sections on this new food pyramid. Yet on the other hand, they're telling you cut out the carbs because you need to lose weight and the world's getting too fat. So how can they have both ways? They can't tell you to eat more carbs because that's the biggest part of your food pyramid, and they can't tell you to stop eating carbs because it's going to keep putting fat on and it's going to increase the obesity worldwide. Even the World Health Organization is contradicting itself. If they can't get it right, then how are the average Joe Blow going to understand or make heads or tails of all the information that gets thrown at them? The food industry the fitness industry, it's a money-making machine. That's all it really is. Unless you've actually been there and done it. I've been in this industry now for 18 odd years, I suppose now. My maths isn't good at this time of night. Having experienced everything, I know what works, I know what doesn't. I couldn't even tell you how many different programs I've gone through. I have notepads after notepads after notepads and books and books and books of all the different workouts I've done, the programs I've done. I've basically tracked everything since I was about the age of 16, 17. I've always been I've been a bit of an analytical thinker, so I've always tracked everything. I've always kept note of everything I've done to see what works and what doesn't. Out of all that stuff, that's where I make my decisions from. I don't make it from a lot of the stuff that's out there, unless there's actually a medically proven paper or a peer-reviewed paper for me to actually look at and change my mind. I've got to actually experiment myself. That's where I've come up with this program that I'm running you guys through. It's designed around things that I've done before myself. I've gotten ridiculous results on, but I haven't just done it and followed it blindly. I've actually done the research behind it and actually figure out why it works and how it works, which is what I'm wanting to explain to you guys and teach you guys over the next few weeks. Essentially, I want everything that's in my brain to be in yours by the end of this program, so that everything I know, you guys can put into practice because you know it as well. It's the only way of long-term getting results and keeping them and being able to modify those results and modify your goals as you go. Food, unfortunately, is one of the biggest things, regardless of what your goal is, whether it's weight loss, whether it's weight gain, whether it's muscle mass, whether it's strength building, your food's going to be your biggest thing. Your body's a machine. Unless you're putting the right fuel into that machine, it's not going to work properly. Unfortunately, it's also the biggest thing that people trip up on, and it's also the biggest thing that there is the most misinformation on. This week, as I said, it's more about the basics of food. We're going to go a little bit onto food in the coming weeks as well. More of how that food relates to the topic and how modifying it's going to change the goals and the exercise you're doing and what sort of things you need to do depending on the exercise you're doing and that sort of stuff. But this week, where I'm going to delve on Thursday, I'm going to delve a little bit more into detail into the little nitty gritty of food and how we can modify meals, how we can modify menus, why eating high fat. I'll go a little bit more into the possibly boring science. I find that stuff fascinating, but bear with me, into how the high fat content actually works, how we increase our ketones, I'm also going to go in later in the week into dealing with the distractions. Life is life. It'll get in the way. You'll have parties come up. You'll have work functions come up. You'll have bad days. You'll have to go out to dinner, whatever it happens to be. This is where the high fat content and the proper keto diets, there are a few different iterations of it. Proper keto diet is very forgiving once you're into ketosis. So in the next, I would expect, I know none of you guys are actually doing the tests for it. You can do, which is something I'm going to post about on the Facebook page, possibly tonight, otherwise tomorrow morning. You can test your ketone levels at home. It's very easy to do. A couple of different functions, a couple of different ways of doing it. I am doing it at the moment, generally within about 48 hours. If you're eating properly and you're following the meal plan, generally by Wednesday, Thursday, you should be 100% in ketosis. Keeping track of the meal plan after that, you should stay in it. And that's where it becomes really forgiving. It's the people that kind of float in and out and aren't really following a strict keto diet. When you float in and out of it, it's not as forgiving. It will get you the results, but it's not quite as forgiving. When we're in a proper keto state or a ketosis state, it's a very forgiving diet. You can have a bad meal here. You can have the odd soft drink or the odd lolly or cake or whatever it happens to be, and it's not going to throw you out of ketosis. It might not be the greatest thing for you for that day, but it's not going to completely ruin the progress. I'm going to get more into them on Saturday, because that's one big thing that people struggle with is, oh, I've had one, or today's ruined, I'll just blow it out. It's really not. And a lot of other diets, yes, you have one bad thing, that's it, the day's done. You've really got to reset and start again. But with the way this ketosis diet works and this high fat content diet works, it doesn't happen like that. You can have one bad meal. You can have one, hiccup here and there, one trip. It's not going to blow the day out as long as you modify it to suit what you need to do. When we're talking our macros, we want to be looking, if you actually look at the meals, most of the recipes on the website should have the breakdown down the bottom of the three macros. If you haven't noticed them already, they'll be down there. It should have the serving size and it should have your three macros broken up. In terms of how much we want to eat of each, generally you want to be looking at about 75% of your meals are going to be fats, 20% are going to be proteins, and 5% are going to be carbs. Some keto diets and some keto health professionals will say you've got to keep under a certain amount of grams of each. That doesn't really account for a lot of the stuff we eat and a lot of life. Trying to keep under grams, you start getting back into calorie counting and that kind of stuff, which gets messy and it's just too hard to stick to. If we try and just stick to the 75-25, it's a lot easier. I generally will try and stay under about 20 grams of carbs a day, but that's just a general rule. If I know if I've had kids party and I've had a piece of cake, I know my carbs are going to be high because I've just had sugar. What I then do is I make sure for the rest of the day is I'm trying to increase my fat content as much as I can, whether it's an extra scoop of coconut oil when I'm cooking, whether it's a dollop of, a little bit of butter with the eggs, whether it's whatever it happens to be. I increase my fat content and it's going to offset that bit of sugar I had in the morning and bring me back closer to that 75-25. If I'm going off the grams, as soon as I have that piece of cake, I'm done. And a lot of people give up at that point and go, oh shit, I'll blow my 50 grams of carbs or 20 grams of carbs, whatever your limit was, and give up for the rest of the day. And instead of just sticking to whatever carbs they had in the morning, they blow it out completely, throw it out the window and just eat shit for the rest of the day. Instead, if they'd just taken that time to go, okay, cool, take the carbs, whatever, it's not the end of the world. I'll offset that. I'll make sure I have a little bit more fat. So I'll put some coconut oil in my protein shake after the workout, whatever it happens to be, and get themselves back on track and actually not make it as bad. I've had days where I've had shocking days, had kids parties, especially over Christmas. I haven't been eating great. As I said, I've been wanting to do this program with you guys. So my eating over Christmas wasn't great, but in previous years, in Christmas, New Year's, birthdays, stuff like that, I've had shocking. I've gone out to meals. I've had a couple of beers. I've had cake. I've had, the pasta for dinner, but I've offset that. Either I knew it was coming, so I planned for it earlier during the day, or I've had a shocking morning, function at work and someone's brought Krispy Kremes in, who they all can say no to Krispy Kremes, honestly. Had them in the morning and I've gone, all right, conscious effort. I'm going to increase my fat content for the rest of the day. I'm going to, increase where I can, put a bit of scoop in the meal for the night or in the protein shake or whatever it happens to be. Tested my ketones the next morning and it's made no difference at all. I'm still in a deep state of ketosis. I'm still losing fat. I'm still getting the results I want. Just because I didn't throw it up in the air and go, oh, screw it, I've done one bad thing, I'll just compound it. It's ridiculous. 75, 25. Have a look at the recipes. They are all roughly around that point. Some of them will have a higher carb content, but again, if you're eating to that menu, you're going to stay to those percentages and you're going to keep yourself in ketosis. As I said, I'm going to mention something. I'm going to put something up in the page for those that are interested. If you want to test your ketones and see how you're going in terms of state of ketosis, there are a couple of different ways of doing it. The more expensive way is getting little blood test monitors, similar to what diabetics have. FYI, a lot of diabetics use ketose diet or a keto-based diet to control their insulin levels. That's something I'm going to go into a little bit later in the week. By increasing your ketones, you drop your insulin levels. And I've had guys that I've worked with that have been, pretty strict type 2 diabetes, having to monitor fairly often. And they've basically got themselves almost out of a diabetic state. They've all bar gotten rid of their type 2 diabetes down to next to nothing in terms of control, just doing it through the diet. Sidetrack. In terms of monitoring, you can get little blood monitors. There are a few different ones. You can get ones that just do blood glucose. Blood glucose level is different to keto level. Your blood glucose monitors are cheap. We've got one for a young fella for all his conditions. They come with little test strips. Your pinprick. See if you go get a go and donate blood. Do a little pinprick like they do. Drop test in the machine. Your ketone monitors are different to the glucose monitors. Glucose monitors are cheap. They're like $30. The test strips are like $20 for 100 or something. They're cheap as chips. Your ketone ones, the monitors themselves have actually got to be a specific ketone monitor. You can get ketone monitors that will measure glucose, but not the other way around. The monitors themselves, I think, are about $60, $70 maybe. You can find them cheap on Amazon and stuff, but they're generally around $60, $70. The test strips themselves are usually about $1.20, $1.50 each. You can find them on special every now and again. The alternative to that, that's your most accurate way of doing it, is testing it straight from the blood and getting your ketone levels from your blood. The other way, which is how I do it because it's cheap as chips, you can get your own test strips. Essentially, they're a little strip with a little felt pad on the end. If you ever remember doing the acid alkaline tests at school, similar kind of thing, or if you've got a pool and you do the acid alkaline tests in the pool and measure it against the color on the bottle, essentially it's got a little color chart on the side that tells you if it's this color, it's how many millijoules per liter. Yeah. Either pee on the stick, pee into a little jar. I've got a little specimen jar that I use, dip it in that, 15 seconds, and you measure the color against the jar, and it tells you what your ketone level is. Not quite as accurate because it will depend on how hydrated you are. If you've been drinking a ton of water, it's obviously going to dilute it. It's going to dilute the minerals in your urine, and it's going to make your ketones seem a little bit higher. Other way around, if you haven't been drinking enough water and you're dehydrated, it's going to make your ketones sit a little bit lower. But if you do it pretty consistently, they're cheap as chips, so it doesn't matter how many you go through. I think the last one I got was a pack of 50 for like $16 or something. Like, they're not much at all. If you try and keep it, same as measuring your weight, try and keep it as scientific as possible. Generally first thing in the morning, I'll get up and measure it first thing in the morning. I will generally monitor it through the day, but I take those measurements with a bit of grain of salt, just because I know it's going to depend on if I've had a really big meal, if I've been drinking a lot for the day, if it's hot and I've been dehydrated, whatever it happens to be. It's going to change it around a little bit. In terms of the measurements, your morning one's going to be your most accurate one, obviously, but I kind of take an average over the day. They're easy to do. You can get them at any chemist. I think it's actually called Keto Stick, as in STIX, Keto Sticks. I'll take a photo of the bottle I've got and put up in the Facebook group for everyone. You can measure it to see if you're like me and you're like just out of interest and curiosity. You can actually see how far into ketosis you are. by following this meal, there is, if you search up ketosis and stuff online, you will find a lot of doomsday sayers, be careful high ketone levels. That's only a problem if you have diabetes. If you don't have diabetes or any other issues, you're going to struggle to get to a high enough ketone level to go into hypoketosis, where it can be dangerous to you. If you eat per the meal plan, you're never going to get high enough to do it. You literally got to be sitting there just eating sticks of butter, basically, or drinking exogenic ketones, which are basically a man-made ketone liquid that you can get. Stupidly expensive. I'm still on the fence of whether they actually work on it. I'm doing experiments on it after this program for those that are interested. You're never really going to get there unless you have a medical condition, whether you've got liver issues or diabetics or something along those lines. You're never going to get into a point that you're actually going to have to worry about high insulin levels or high ketone levels. 1.5 mmOg per litre is where you want to stay above. As of today, I am just above that. So I'm 2 days in and I'm already in ketosis. Most of you guys, if you're sticking to the menu, the fact that most of it's your first time, I think there's 1 or 2 of you that have done this before. If you're sticking to the meal plan, generally it'll take you 3 to 4 days and you should start getting pretty close to a full state of ketosis. So generally by Thursday, you'll really kind of start seeing changes. You'll find you're going to have a lot more energy. You're going to have a lot more bursts of energy, especially after your meals. You're going to feel fuller. You're going to have a lot more energy. You're going to feel good. You're actually going to probably, for the first week, you're probably going to sweat a little bit more just because your body's going to start going overtime and burning fat off. You will also, the other trick to note if you're in a state of ketosis, you'll actually start getting really sweet smelling breath. Sounds kind of weird, but it's actually the increased ketones in your body. When we burn fat, we actually burn it off through your breath. If you've ever looked at the inside of a windshield and tried to clean the inside of a windshield, if you've let it go for a few months, you find there's a very oily film on the inside of the car windows. That's actually the oil from your breath, or the fat from your breath. When we actually burn fat off, everyone thinks you sweat it off and this sort of stuff. It actually comes out through your breath. If you've ever been near someone that's diabetic and having a fairly high insulin spike, their breath actually gets really, really sweet. Or if they've just had an insulin injection, their breath actually smells really, really sweet. You'll get the same thing. And it's one of the ways of noting if you're in ketosis, your breath will smell quite sweet. It's an odd way of doing it, but it's effective. It doesn't lie. You can't make your breath smell sweet without it, really. So that's one way of noticing it. Otherwise, the test strips. The meal plan is pretty much foolproof. It will get you into ketosis if you follow it. Those that can't dig the MCT coffee, don't stress. It's not the end of the world. Just try and up your fat content elsewhere. All the MCT coffee does is it gives you a really big fat boost for the morning, gives you a really good energy boost and starts your day off right. It can be a bit of an acquired taste. It took me a little bit to get used to it. But these days I love it. I can't get without it. I absolutely love it. It's the thing I look forward to when I get up in the morning is the frittata and the MCT coffee. Other than that, if you have any questions, you should be able to type them into the chat box on the side. I'll double check the Facebook group now just to make sure no one's actually put any questions in there since we started, because I know there's a few guys that can't make this group. What do we got? Facebook group. Don't think there's any questions in there. If you've got any questions, type them in the chat box and I will get stuck into them. No, there is no questions that I can see, which is good. I have to give a big shout out to Attila. Mate, congrats on the new bubs. That's awesome, dude. I think you got your handful. I think that's like 5 now. Dude, I got 3 and it's a handful. You're a champion, man. You're a hero to me. I don't know how you're doing 5. How you doing 5 kids? I must say, I do feel sorry for your son though. If that's 4 daughters and a boy, I do feel sorry for the poor bugger. He's going to be dressed up like a Barbie doll for the next 18 years. Congrats, man. Well done. So there's no questions in the Facebook group. If you've got no questions, nothing getting typed in the chat box, I think that's going to be it for tonight. Next training is going to be Thursday night. I'm struggling to remember what day of the week it is because it's school holidays. My routine's out of whack. Next training will be Thursday day. Actually, I'm doing a Thursday day one for the guys that can't do the nighttime. Should be 12 to 12:30 is when I'm going to try and do it. I will double check with the guys that are able to do the daytime one just to make sure that that time's going to work. But from those that I've spoken to, that seems to work. I'll probably base it around 12:30 just so I can get lunch out of the way. So I'm not going to jump on here and be cranky because I haven't eaten. Other than that, guys, if you have any more questions, feel free to post them under the video in the comments when I put this up in Facebook. Otherwise, you can check it out on the membership site. If you have any more questions about the program, let me know. Everyone seems to be killing it. Those first 2 days have gone past really, really quick. Looking forward to some massive results, guys. I'm really proud of you all. You're all killing it so far. Let's keep it strong. Talk to you soon, guys.